But I work for IPG. I've worked for WPP. I've worked for Publicis. I know many people at Omnicom, so I feel I have a fairly decent understanding of the 4 big holdings. None of them, not a single one, will let its agency keep people on the bench waiting for clients to come. If you're not billable, you're vulnerable. And if you are vulnerable, that means you're not going to be working there because we have to respect our profit margins. We are in business to make money like everyone else. And so that means when clients come around, or potential clients come around, and ask for us to serve them, what will happen? We will scrape together people. They will work excessively long hours. They will compromise the work they're doing for their existing clients. They will do whatever it takes, some of the time, to try to win that business. Clients are smart. Many of you are brilliant. Show us the team that's going to be working on our business in the chemistry session. I love the chemistry session. That's where we sit around a room for 2 hours and pretend that we're all in love with each other. And then what happens is that because I've just pulled all these people from teams, because I can't keep people on the bench, and the only thing different than me than some of my competitors is I probably am not going to bullshit the client. Do I seem like that kind of guy? So I'm going to say, if you are so inclined as to give us the business, if we merit your giving us this opportunity, and it does indeed need to be merited, then I'm going to have to figure out who works on your business. And see, all these people in the room, they're already working for clients. I don't like to call up clients and say, oh, I'm pulling Joe because we got something new. That is not necessarily a way to build trust and avoid the volatility we were talking about a few minutes later. So the procurement process is wacky. Rube Goldberg did a very good job. Actually, he didn't know he was designing the procurement process, but if we had engaged him to do it, this is what he would have drawn. So there is a prevailing model. Let's just get it clear. The first thing that happens is the subtle price pressure. This is usually followed by the endless pitches. And this is a curveball, but believe me, if you've been in a pitch, that's usually the pitch that comes. And then there's constant change. If I had a dime for every time I heard someone from procurement say, I need you to sharpen your pencil. I'm thinking of Mrs. Barksdale in kindergarten. Right after milk, we always used to do our pencil thing. It's insane how much pressure there is on the clients to get costs down, which is transferred to these price experts, these people who can tell us apples for apples and oranges for oranges. But Jeff was talking about never compromising on creativity. And I'm not sure where price and creativity intersect, maybe in a very bad place. So this model is really, not everybody works this way. I'm not so ignorant to think that everyone just works this model, but this is really what's going on out there. And it was true when I worked in Ogilvy. It was true when I worked at Digitas. It's true in McCann. It was true at Blast Radius in Europe and in Ogilvy when I worked there. It's been true when I worked in Singapore. It always is the same. In fact, I found this book on the internet the other day. I'm thinking of reading it. It was for couples therapy. I took that off on the nice little graphic here. But I need this therapy. Clearly, this is really a group therapy session for me. We have clients who ask so much of us, as they should, but they never stop. The pressure on all of us. This is a tough time in all of our industries. We recognize we're the fortunate ones to be at a conference in a beautiful resort. Fewer jobs, longer hours. But right now, we have a level of antagonism, which isn't always there, but is often there, that I think is really hurting what we're trying to do, which is to create great brands, provide phenomenal products and services to customers. So I think we need intervention, and there's a lot of reasons for that, but we know there's been a revolution. We know that stuff is going on in our world. We've been talking about this conference. You read about it every day. You live it, whether it's the fact that now when we have a marketing conversation in our agency, it never ends without talking about what are we going to do on Facebook. That blows my mind. 4 years ago, somebody said to me, you're going to spend a pretty big part of your day talking about how to activate a brand on Facebook. I would have looked at them like they were on drugs. And now if I don't figure out how to activate my clients' brands on Facebook, I'll be out of a job. So that's fascinating. We've got the cloud, and God knows the cloud solves everything, because anytime you get into a technology conversation with somebody said, that's in the cloud. And that, I love that. You know, it reminds me of high school, but that was a different thing. And then, of course, we've got the social graph. How many people here have had their social graph done? It's kind of after colors. It's much cooler. Everybody's got their social graph in our agency. We know how we're consuming media. I see people eating newspapers. It worries me. Although, of course, now they're eating iPads. That's better. And, of course, you can't really do marketing without applications. And, you know, could you imagine not going around New York City? And I'm not a New Yorker. So I am adapting to the fact that my colleagues, many of them younger than I am because I'm the old guy in the office, don't go anywhere without telling Foursquare where they're going. And so who would have imagined a couple of years ago being in the marketing business saying, well, there's this thing where you tell everybody in the world where you are all the time and that's really good for your brand. Like this revolution, this total change that we're living and we're talking about here has totally changed what marketing service agencies are being asked to do because it's changing what you're asked to do. And this is part of the problem. You throw the price pressure into that, you throw the strength of procurement, and you get the mess we're in. So I'll stop bitching. Not really. I was brought in here to bitch, and I think I want to get people to think. But we're trying to figure out what the future model is, how we're going to make this work. And remember what I said, you may want to fire your agency and not hire another one. Seems like sacrilege, doesn't it? That agency guy came and he said fire him. And he didn't say then hire me. That's a choice. The point is, as businessmen and women, we really have only one job. And I don't care whether you're running this hotel, running a marketing services agency, selling paper, selling Kodak cameras, or life insurance, or any other quite reputable profession, and perhaps some of those less reputable. You have capital, you allocate it, and you want a return on investment. That's business. There's really not much else to define it at the high level. So if that's true, and I believe it is, then the way you allocate that capital, the way you spend your money is probably one of the single most important decisions you can make. So in this world of tumultuous change with Facebooks and applications and Twitter and all these things, deciding how you spend your capital to create marketing success is really critical. So let's look at that. Let's keep in mind that though everything has changed over those 3 wonderfully described era by Forrester, maybe nothing has changed. Because there's still 3 levers that every CMO, and now it's often the CEO because they get involved, has to judge, has to manage. Your staff costs. How many people are in the marketing department? What do they do? It's pretty simple and straightforward. It's hard to get right. HR is the equivalent of procurement. They're saying, no, 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 you can't hire those people, not at that price, but that's key. There's media costs. Now, we like to tell people in our agency, a digital agency, that media cost is now where we have the greatest leverage. We can get people to talk about your brand without paying people to talk about your brand. And the messaging business has been pronounced dead, though it's still alive. But basically, the era of broadcasting messages is, shall we say, declining. And the era of people having conversations and trying to harness those conversations is rising. But still, media is going to be the biggest portion of most companies' budgets, certainly the large ones that are trying to sway consumer opinion. But today, yes, let's talk about agency and consultancy fees, because I can't control staff costs in your company, though I'd have a lot of strong opinions about how to perhaps help you there. And media costs, we're looking for solutions which diminish them, especially since there's so much fragmentation. But agency and consulting fees, that's the lever. And this hasn't really changed since 1919, I believe, though, as I said, I wasn't here in 1919. So first, one of the least well-kept secrets in the world, and this is an important fact. If I pay somebody $100,000 a year, plus benefits, to come work in our agency in New York, I'm going to charge you $250,000 to $350,000 a year for that person. I have to. I've got to pay the overhead. I've got to pay the rent between Third and Lex. I've got to pay for the computers. I've got to train them. I've got to give them health care. That's going up, I've heard. I've got to recruit them. I've got to do all those things that will enable me to have the talent.